This happened in Michoacan, Mexico. So this guy says that growing up, him and his older brother had to share a room. He says that they had a habit of always staying up till like 11 at night on their phones. He admits that every time he would see his older brother put his phone away, he did too, because he was so scared of laying in the room while his brother was asleep and him on his phone, like surrounded by darkness. He does say that he grew out of that fear of like his brother being asleep and him staying up. So after a few years, he did end up staying up on his phone till like 3 or 4 in the morning. He says that even though he would stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning, sometimes he would get a little bit panicked because we all know that not good things happen around that time. He does say that from time to time his fear would get the best of him, so he would end up putting music on his phone and falling asleep to that. He also admits that there were times where he would remind himself that he was alone, awake, everyone's asleep, total darkness, so he would literally put the blanket over his head and continue to watch videos. Even though his eyes would get red from how tired he was, he almost saw it like a challenge. He wanted to stay awake and like face his fear. So when he was around 7 years old, he says that he stayed up on his phone again, but this time he saw something weird through his window. He says that he kept seeing something like flying back and forth. That he did have a curtain on his window. It was like dark and brown, but at nighttime, since it was much lighter outside, you can see when something darker would pass by, which is how he would see that thing just flying back and forth. He said that at first he wanted to tell himself that maybe there were birds, but the way that he would see it flying back and forth, like it didn't seem like a bird. And also he said that he would almost also see them land on the roof of the house, and when he would try to take a peek, there would be nothing on the roof. He also told himself, like, what if I'm seeing these things because of how late I'm staying up, because he would get tired and he wouldn't go to sleep. But he says that he doesn't think it was him, because there was a time where he actually just removed the whole curtain because he wanted to see what the fuck was flying back and forth, and nothing would fly by and there was nothing on the roof. He doesn't know how he grew the courage to do this, but one of those nights he had a plan. He literally opened the curtain to the point where only one eye was outside and one eye was inside the room, and he stayed there for a good amount of time and nothing passed by. And as soon as he quit, he saw something fly back and forth again. He thought to himself, like, what if they are witches? Like, what if they're messing with me? And of course they would mess with me because I'm 7 years old, and what if they want to take me away? He says that after a while, like whatever it was flying back and forth just became his new norm, and he really didn't worry about it anymore. That was until one night where he was laying in bed on his phone and he heard the craziest animal sounds coming from his dogs and chickens outside. And a few moments after hearing all that, he started to hear something coming from his window. Something that sounded like somebody was in pain, getting closer and closer. He got scared, but immediately opened up that curtain and looked to see what was outside, and again, there was nothing. And even though he didn't see anything outside of his window, his dogs and chickens were still going crazy. In that moment, he was so scared that he decided to pick his phone up and look up a video of like prayers and just let it play throughout the night. He said that in his crazy moment, he picked one and didn't really think about it, and when it started playing, the actual prayer was in Latin, so he didn't really understand what they were saying. He got a little freaked out, but then the priest in the video started talking normal and he understood him, but then the priest would go back into talking into that Latin language and almost like screaming it, so he was like, what the fuck is going on? He said that he was so scared that he didn't even have the energy to like get up, get his phone, change it to something different, because he just couldn't move. And in that moment is when someone on the other end of that room called his name. It was his brother, of course, who had woken up by the sound of that Latin prayer that the priest was screaming. His brother told him to shut that off because instead of sounding like a prayer, it sounded like something satanic, and he needed to turn that shit off now. He scared his brother, and of course he understood how scary it was, because imagine being in deep sleep and you get woken up by a priest screaming something in Latin. I would have had a heart attack. So he shuts it off and tries to go to sleep, even though he continues to see something pass by and hear that weird sound of that thing that was getting closer to his window. The next day, his brother did tell his mom what happened that night. His mom didn't get mad at him, but she did ask why he was trying to play a prayer in the middle of the night. All he told her was that it was because he couldn't go to sleep. He admits that he couldn't tell his mom what he was seeing through the window. It wasn't until years later where this conversation came up in his family, and that's when he he finally admitted to them what he would see at his window. He said his family didn't have this like crazy reaction because they thought the same thing he did when he first saw it, which was that they could have been animals. So again, this was only a few years later, which meant that they were now teenagers and still were in that same room. The family still lived in that same house. So because his family didn't have that big reaction, he was like, I'm gonna prove it to them that this is not an animal. So he decided that that night, when he would see that thing in the window, because he was still seeing it, he was gonna wake his brother up and make him watch with him. Unfortunately, his brother saw nothing and neither did he. Apparently, he believed that that thing would only appear when it was him alone and not when anyone else was watching. And that was the case, because when his brother did fall asleep, he ended up seeing that thing fly back and forth on his window. He also attempted to record what was passing by with his phone, but he says that it was so dark that his phone couldn't even make out the things he was seeing with his own eyes. He says that every night that he goes to sleep and he sees those things, he remembers that time where something was like weeping by his window, getting closer and closer. He says that today he's still living in that house, and fortunately, he hasn't seen anything, but he knows that eventually they're just gonna come back and he's gonna see these things again. He says that as he's typing this story, he is laying in his bed in the middle of the night and he is terrified that he might see them again, and also terrified that they may do something more than just fly through his window. He says he's gonna put his phone away and attempt to go to sleep and hopes that these witches or whatever it is outside his window will eventually leave him alone. This story comes from Relatos Oscuros, and if you want to listen to it, this is what the video will look like.
There's a woman by the name of Paloma that claims to be a lechuza. In case you don't know what a lechuza is a witch that is able to take the form of a bird or any other animals. The only way they're able to do this is by making a pact with you-know-who and giving up their soul, which then makes them be able to kind of transform. They have been known for many, many years. I haven't had experiences with them. My family have had experiences with them. But never in a million years did I ever think that I would come across somebody openly talking about it, stating that they themselves are a lechuza. From the looks of it, her original page has been taken down. This was actually from an interview she did. But she states that she can transform herself every night, and it's like a mind thing. In her mind, she feels it, and then she transforms, and she's able to kind of go on about soaring through the sky, I guess. My grandmother grew up in a town right outside of Bucaramanga, Colombia, where lechuzas were extremely common. Like, it wasn't like anything shocking. She would always tell me stories about her brothers staying out late hunting, and on their way back, they would come across these things that were getting their way. They would taunt them, they would follow them through the trees. They were basically just there to annoy. On one occasion, her brother became so frustrated with these things constantly following him and taunting him along the way that he actually captured one of them. This is actually gonna get a little bit graphic, but he actually tied one of them up because he was just so done with them. I don't know if you guys know this, but lechuzas have to be back in their body before sunrise. If they stay out past that time, they will be severely punished by. He ended up shaving the top of her head and told her to come back the next day to ask, I don't know exactly for what it was, I think it was like a glass of milk or something, so that he would know who she was. After he let her go, the very next day, just like clockwork, this woman shows up, bald, asking for a glass of milk. Let me know if you guys have ever experienced a lechuza. I mean, I love hearing all the stories.
Another scary story, and this one comes from Pakistan. So this is during the time of the partition between India and Pakistan. When Pakistan was made its own country, there was a big mass migration, one of the biggest migrations of all time, and there was also thousands and thousands and thousands of deaths, especially women, during this time. So this occurred during the migration when my great-grandparents migrated from India to Pakistan. They would travel only at night. So my grandparents told me this story when I was a kid, but I remember it so vividly. While the migration was happening, they would only camp out at night, and the ladies would always be in the tents looking after their children, and the men would patrol the area. My great-grandmother was in her teens when this happened. She told us one night while everyone was resting, there was a campfire that was lit outside, and she saw a silhouette of a distorted figure walking around the tent. As its shadow was highlighted by the campfire, she noticed that it looked a bit odd, as there was no woman outside of the camp, only men were outside. My great-grandmother was frightened by seeing that thing lurking around the camp, as now it had made its way inside. And it was a churel. So a churel is a definition of like a bad entity, a bad spirit, like mostly like a witchy spirit with not good intentions. So she had made her way inside. She came in and saw my great-grandma. My great-grandma let out a scream, and then every woman in the tent woke up, and she tried to grab my great-grandma, but luckily the men who were patrolling outside were there to grab her. As they tried to tie her down, she didn't go down without a fight. The men finally subdued her and tied her with a rope as she started screaming in a very oddly manner. Her terrifying voice echoed throughout the forest, and now animals were starting to cry and howl as well. There was also an elderly wise woman that was with them. Not with the churel, like with the rest of the people. She said to burn her as she's signaling others by this terrifying scream that she's letting out. And there are more of them present, and if they hear her screams, they will come, and then none of us will survive. Eventually, the men tied her down and burnt her. As her body started to melt and her screams tore through the forest areas, she cursed out loud before being burnt to a crisp. That very moment, they all gathered up their belongings and left that area, but the cries of the animals didn't stop. Oh my god, that was so creepy. I got goosebumps. Send me more, guys. These are so good.
Someone submitted a story to me about being haunted on a Native American reservation, and it is terrifying. Tonight's submitter did not tell me whether I could use her real name or not, so I'm going to call her Victoria. So Victoria starts off the story by saying that she's Native American and she was born on a reservation, but after a few years, she moved to the city. Now, Victoria says that you would think that a lot of scary things would happen on a reservation, but it wasn't until she was 3 years old that scary things really started to happen to her. And she also said that you don't think that you would remember what you would experience at 3 years old, and most people don't. And she doesn't remember a lot, but she does remember this particular thing. Because what she saw, she should have never seen. Now, in her culture, she was taught the basics. Never to whistle at night, don't run in the house at night, and don't tell scary stories at night. In fact, she was taught not to even go outside at night, not even to look out the window. Well, on this particular night, she was sleeping on the bed with her mom, her stepfather, and her older sister. Her sister is about 3 years older than her. Now, in her culture, they have these ghosts that you are never supposed to see. But one night, she's sleeping, and she wakes up to somebody yelling, and she can't really see anything, but it's yelling outside of the window. We're on the second story of the house with a window looking over her small dirt lawn, and at first, when she heard this noise, she did not move. She was too scared to move. But then suddenly, the yelling got louder, and then right in her ear, she hears, "Hey." Well, right after this, her mom and her stepfather wake up to her crying. And right after they wake up to her crying, they see her crawling over to that window that she heard that loud noise from, that yelling. And then they see her stand up, look out the window, and go from crying to screaming hysterically. What she remembers seeing was a spirit, not the good kind. His face was pale white. His lips were black, and he wore an all black outfit. And he wore a hat that looked kind of like a bullfighter's hat, except for it was more pointy. The hat had a flat top, but the sides were more pointy. So pointy, in fact, that the points were about shoulder length, and she doesn't remember much past that. A couple years later, she's turning 10 years old, and she goes and visits her family on that same reservation. Apparently, there was a carnival going on near that reservation, and her cousins decide to go. They had a lot of fun and decided to go home around 12 a.m., but before they went home, they decided that they were going to go get a few snacks at a gas station that was close by. So they go to the gas station, and they get a couple snacks and some slushies, but then one of her cousins mentions that she wants to go for a walk, so all of the other cousins agree, and they go for a walk. At first, they were having a lot of fun. They were pushing each other into mud puddles, but all the fun ends when they hear somebody call Victoria's name, and they turn around and nobody is there. Now, they obviously think this is weird that somebody is calling her name because it's probably a stranger because they don't recognize the voice, but they kind of just brush it off. They continue walking, and by then they are in the back roads of a small village. Suddenly, one of her cousins gets this bad feeling, and he tells them that he gets this bad feeling, and he's like, I think that we should just go home at this point, and everyone else agrees. So they're walking when randomly in the distance, they see somebody dancing in the middle of the dirt road. Now, Victoria said to think of like traditional native dancing, and they thought at first that it was just a drunk person until they hear this person chanting. Chanting is in her native language, and then they hear bells jingling. They turn around and they interlock arms and they walk fast just to like make sure that they don't lose one another. So they make it around the back corner of the gas station where there's like these flickering street lights, and they're about 2 houses away from her grandmother's house when they hear somebody yell, "Hey." She said that they immediately stopped walking, and then she got goosebumps all over her body. Then it suddenly got really cold outside to the point where she was shivering. She said that her cousins were trying to get her to move, but she literally couldn't physically move. That's when she hears it. She hears somebody say, "Hey!" Look up. She says she can't really describe the voice, but that it sounded like a grown man and a child at the same time. Then she looks up at the house next to them and she sees somebody dancing on the roof. No, thank you. They're twirling and humming and their arms are out like a scarecrow. Suddenly, she cannot breathe. Then this thing turns its head and she sees that pointy hat. She immediately starts running towards her grandmother's house. Her cousins, frightened by what they heard, but they didn't see it, only she was the one who saw it, started running as well. And as soon as they get home, she tells everybody, like her grandparents, her mom, her uncle, everyone, what they saw. Now, they just got mad at them for being so late and staying out so late and tell them to go straight to bed, but they couldn't go straight to bed because right after they tried to go to bed 5 minutes later, they hear someone yelling outside of the house, "Hey, hey!" Grandparents take all of the kids and they push them inside of the grandparents' room, and then the men in the family go outside to see who is yelling. So obviously at this point, the adults are scared as well. She said that 5 minutes after the men went outside, they came back inside and they're putting on shoes, they're putting on jackets, they're grabbing lighters, flashlights, cell phones, but they wouldn't tell the kids anything. They just were in a hurry and they could tell that they were in a hurry. So they leave and they don't even return till the next morning. The parents wouldn't let them listen to the conversation, but the walls were thin. But the kids heard their uncle speaking to their grandparents, telling them that there was something following them home the night before. They did say that they had found what was following the kids and that they had chased it to the back roads near a small abandoned prison that no one goes nearby. But apparently they had lost whatever they were chasing. Victoria says still to this day, she can hear bells like somebody is dancing outside of her window, and sometimes she'll hear yells and whispers of somebody saying, "Hey." Now, Victoria tells her mom about this, but her mom tells her to stop talking about the story. She tells her and does clarify that she did see a ghost when she was younger, but she won't tell her anything else. Victoria has also seen a medicine man a couple of times, and the medicine man told her that there's a witch attached to her. Apparently, this witch goes through her trash and finds random hair and fingernails that she has thrown away to basically use against her. And every once in a while, she will see that man with a pointy hat in her peripheral vision. When this happens, she normally sees him peeking around corners, or she'll see him in the corner of her eye dancing while she's at home alone in the living room, or she'll hear it. She can even hear him call her name, telling her to come follow him, and sometimes she'll dream of him, but in the morning she'll forget what his face looks like. She only remembers his black mouth and his soulless eyes. And she also told me that sometimes when she's laying in bed at night, she'll hear him tapping on the window, asking her to come outside. And if she's sleeping random nights, she'll hear him yell, "Hey," in her ear. She even heard him say that he was never gonna leave her alone, ever. He said this in her ear. Because of this, because he yells in her ear, she is terrified of loud noises. So she doesn't like popping balloons. She doesn't like fireworks. She doesn't like the sound of people yelling. It terrifies her. And she is most specifically scared of people yelling because she is afraid that in their voices, she is going to hear him yell back at her. So what do you guys think about that story? What do you think is going on here? I think this is truly terrifying, and she definitely has an attachment in my opinion. Victoria, I know you wanted my TikTok friends' opinion. So if you guys could drop in the comments what you think is going on here, that would be great, or any advice or suggestions that you have for her. My advice or suggestion would be to seek out whatever is your culture. I'm not sure what your specific culture, who you would go seek help for, but if you were Catholic, it would be a priest. So whatever your culture is, and I'm sorry that I don't know what it is, I'm not familiar with it, but I would go seek out help from that person to try to get them to cleanse you or cleanse your space. I really hope that you can get this taken care of, girl. Thank you so much for letting me share your story. And for the next part, I am going to do my favorite part, which is the shout outs. My first shout out is going to Heat5386. You left the sweetest comment ever. Thank you so much for what you said. That was the nicest thing I think anyone has ever said to me. I appreciate you so much. And you also said that you think that we would be friends if you lived closer to me. Girl, we probably would, but we can be friends on here. So you can message me anytime you want. I will always respond if I see it. You can email me. That's a faster way of getting my attention. And thank you so much. You are the best, girl, and I love you. My next shout out is going to Becky Dawn 8. Thank you so much for your comment. It was so sweet. Thank you. I can't even say thank you enough. I love that you love my content. That really, truly means the world to me. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for supporting me. It means the world to me, like I said, and I hope that you know how much I appreciate you with my whole entire heart, and I love you, girl. And with that being said, my name is Kaisa, and I tell true scary stories on here every single night that you guys submit to me. So if you're into that, hit that follow button. And I just need you to do 3 things for me. And what are those? Keep sending me your scary stories. Have a safe night. And what's the third one? Say it with me. Have a spooky night. Love you guys so much. See you in the next one. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.